Comment your name and state below. I'd love to see who's watching and benefiting from these videos. Because today's topic is one of the biggest sources of stress, confusion, and honestly, fear, for people turning 65. And if you're anywhere near that age, or you have a spouse or parent getting close, you already know exactly what I'm talking about. That question that keeps you up at night: do I need to enroll in Medicare the moment I turn 65, or can I wait? So many people believe that if they don't sign up the very day they hit 65, they're going to get slammed with penalties or lose their coverage. But the truth? Not everyone has to enroll right away. Some people must enroll, some absolutely should not enroll because it would be a total waste of money, and then there's a third group of people who might want to enroll, but only after comparing their options. And today, by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly which group you belong to. So let's talk through it the way I do when someone calls our office in a panic. Usually the phone rings and the first words I hear are, "I'm turning 65 next month, I don't want to mess this up, what am I supposed to do?" And every time, I tell them the same thing I'm going to tell you: breathe. Medicare is confusing, but once you understand a few rules, it all starts to make sense. Let's start with the people who absolutely must enroll at 65. These are folks who, if they don't, could face real penalties or major financial risk. And yes, the penalties are real, the risks are real, but they only apply in certain situations. For example, if you're not working anymore and you don't have any employer coverage for yourself or through a spouse, you have to enroll because you have no other insurance protecting you. If you delay Medicare with no other insurance, Medicare sees that as going without coverage, and that's what triggers penalties. I once talked to a man named Robert who thought he could wait until 67 because he was healthy and didn't go to the doctor much. He had zero coverage. When he finally tried to enroll, he learned he would owe a lifetime Part B penalty because he waited 2 full years. Nobody had told him. So please, if you don't have employer coverage, you enroll. Then we have the people on ACA Marketplace plans. This one surprises so many people. When you turn 65 and you're on an ACA plan, all those tax credits and financial help you've been getting disappear. They automatically end the moment you're eligible for Medicare. So if you stayed on that ACA plan, your premium could jump from something like $50 a month to $700 or more overnight. And nobody wants that. It simply won't make sense to stay. ACA is not considered creditable for Medicare, and Medicare expects you to enroll when you turn 65. Then there's the tricky one, COBRA. And this is where people really make mistakes. COBRA feels like real insurance, right? Your employer even tells you, "Here, take this until you figure out your next step." But the second you turn 65, COBRA moves into the second payer position. That means they pay after Medicare. So if you don't have Medicare, there's nothing in that first spot. I always use this example because it shocks people. Imagine you have a $100,000 medical bill. COBRA pays 20% because it's the secondary payer. That leaves $80,000 unpaid because Medicare was supposed to be the primary. And since you didn't enroll, guess who gets stuck with the $80,000 balance? You do. That's why anyone with COBRA should enroll in Medicare at 65, no exceptions. The same thing happens with TRICARE. It becomes secondary after 65. It will not step into the primary role. Medicare has to be in that spot. And last in this must-enroll group are people with a small employer, meaning fewer than 20 employees. This surprises people too because they think, well, I'm working, so I must be covered. But Medicare sees employers under 20 employees as too small to be the primary payer. So just like COBRA, that employer plan will slide into secondary position at 65, and Medicare becomes primary. If you skip Medicare, you could end up with a giant bill. I talk to people who say, but HR never mentioned this, and I always tell them, HR is great, but they're not Medicare experts. Medicare rules are Medicare rules. Now before we go any further, let's pause on the penalties because people stress about these more than anything. Part A, for almost everyone, is free. So even if there was a penalty, 10% of zero is still zero. You're safe there. But Part B? That's where the lifetime penalty comes in, 10% for every 12 months you go without coverage when you should have had it. So if you delay 3 years, that's a 30% penalty that you pay for life. And because Part B premiums rise almost every year, your penalty rises with them. Part D, the drug plan, has a penalty too, 1% for every month you didn't have creditable drug coverage. I once spoke to an 85-year-old woman who never enrolled in Part D. That's 20 years of a penalty. Her penalty was higher than the plan premium. She waited so long that she can basically never escape that penalty. So yes, penalties are real, but remember, they only apply if you fail to enroll when you should have. And now you understand the situations where you must enroll. But now let's flip the script, because there are people who absolutely should not enroll at 65. And you might be one of them. If you're still working at a large employer, meaning 20 or more employees, or you're covered under your spouse's large employer plan, then you do not need to enroll in Medicare at 65. That employer plan stays primary, Medicare stays secondary, and there are no penalties because Medicare considers that creditable coverage. Why pay 2 premiums? If your employer plan is good and affordable, there's no reason to sign up for Medicare at 65. Just continue with the employer plan until you retire. Now there are a few important details to check. You want to make sure the employer coverage is actually creditable, meaning it's at least as good as Medicare. Your HR department can confirm this. Most large employers meet this standard, but checking can save you headaches. And another thing, if you have a health savings account, an HSA, this is important, do not enroll in Part A. The minute you activate Part A, even if it's free, you are no longer allowed to contribute to your HSA. You can still use the money that's already in the account, but no new contributions. Since HSAs offer amazing tax advantages, many people choose to delay Medicare specifically so they can keep contributing to their HSA. Now the people in this second group also get something special when they retire, a Medicare special enrollment period. You get 8 months from the day you lose employer coverage to sign up for Part B without penalty. But even though Medicare gives you 8 months, you should never wait that long because you don't want a gap in your coverage. If your employer plan ends November 30th, you want your Medicare to begin December 1st. And remember, if you're over 65 and they offer you COBRA after you retire, don't take it unless Medicare is already active. COBRA becomes secondary after 65. That rule never changes. Now we get to the third group, and this is where the real comparison begins. These are people who technically don't have to enroll at 65 because they do have creditable employer coverage, but they might want to enroll anyway. And the only way to know is to compare your employer plan to Medicare. There's no universal rule here. It depends on your premium, your deductible, your medications, your health needs, your spouse's situation, and your long-term cost. So let's walk through how I help people compare. The first question I ask, what do you pay each month for your employer plan? Because Medicare Part B in 2026 is projected to be around $206.50 a month. And then you'll probably add either a Medigap plan or a Medicare Advantage plan. So if your employer plan is costing you something like $250 or less, and it's strong coverage, it might make sense to stay. But I've also seen employer plans cost $600, $800, even over $1,000 for certain employees. In those cases, switching to Medicare can save hundreds every month. Then I ask about dependents. Is your spouse or a child on your employer plan? Because if you move to Medicare, they may lose their coverage. And that's a deal breaker for many families. But sometimes, the opposite happens. Sometimes the employee is cheap to insure, but adding a spouse costs $300 extra. So sometimes a couple splits their insurance. The spouse who's 65 moves to Medicare, and the younger spouse stays on the employer plan. This happens more often than you'd think. Then we look at deductibles and max out-of-pocket. Employer deductibles can be high. I've seen $3,000, $5,000, even $7,500 deductibles before the employer plan pays anything. With Medicare, if you choose a Medigap plan, your costs can be extremely low, often under a few hundred for the entire year. If you choose a Medicare Advantage plan, the max out-of-pocket is capped by law. In 2026, Advantage plans can have out-of-pocket limits up to around $8,850, but many plans are lower. And speaking of Medicare Advantage, let's talk 2026 updates, especially dental benefits. Because here's something many people don't realize, Medicare Advantage plans in 2026 are putting more emphasis on dental coverage. We're seeing richer dental allowances, expanded provider networks, better coverage for major dental services, and in many counties, plans are offering bundled dental packages that cover cleanings, x-rays, fillings, crowns, root canals, and even partial dentures. Original Medicare does not cover dental at all, so this is a big reason some people choose Advantage plans when they retire. Dental becomes a major factor for a lot of older adults, and the insurance companies know it. So if your employer plan has weak dental coverage, Medicare Advantage could become an appealing option. Next, we talk about medications. Employer plans can be all over the map with drug costs. Some cover medications well, some don't. Medicare Part D, however, is changing dramatically. In 2026, the yearly cap on prescription drug costs is $2,100. That means no matter what medications you take, even if you're on something costing $20,000 a month, once you hit $2,100 for the year, you stop paying. Employer plans don't have that cap. If you have high-cost medications, Medicare could save you thousands every year. Now let's talk networks. Employers often use HMOs or PPOs, which can restrict which doctors you can see. With Medicare, if you choose a Medigap plan, you can see any doctor in the entire United States who accepts Medicare, no referrals, no networks, no roadblocks. If you choose Medicare Advantage, you'll be back in network-based coverage, but some Advantage networks are very large. So again, it depends on your preference. And then we have special groups, people with VA benefits, FEHB plans, or retired military. If you're with the VA, you technically don't have to enroll in Medicare, but many choose to so they can see civilian doctors. For retired federal workers with FEHB, the drug coverage is usually handled by the federal plan, so many enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan without drug coverage, called MA only, and they often get something called a Part B giveback. Sometimes $100, sometimes $150, sometimes more. It's literally money deposited back into your Social Security check each month. So after going through all these comparisons, most people have a light bulb moment. They finally see whether they belong in the must enroll, should not enroll, or maybe enroll category. And once you know your category, all the fear goes away. You can make a confident, informed decision. Now there's one last piece I want to explain because so few people know about it, and it is absolutely critical. If you delay Medicare because you're working and you come in later, whether you're 67, 70, or even 75, you get a 6-month Medigap open enrollment window tied to your Part B start date. This is your golden opportunity to get a Medigap Plan G or Plan N with zero medical questions. No underwriting. No being denied because of past cancer, heart issues, diabetes, or other conditions. For some people, this is their one and only chance to ever get a supplementary plan. So don't miss that window. And yes, when you come into Medicare after 65, you'll need 2 forms, the L564 form, which your employer signs to prove you had creditable coverage, and the CMS 40B, which tells Medicare when you want Part B to start. Once those forms are submitted, you're set. So now that we've walked through everything, you should know exactly which group you belong to. If you're on COBRA, TRICARE, ACA, unemployed, or with a small employer, you must enroll at 65. If you're working for a large employer with creditable coverage, you don't have to enroll. And if you're in that middle group where you technically don't have to enroll but Medicare might be a better value, you compare the numbers and choose the better plan. And if you ever need help with that comparison, that's what we do every day. If this video helped you, please give it a like. It truly helps the channel reach more people who need this information. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the 2026 Medicare updates coming out this year. And drop a comment with your name and your state. I'd love to see where everyone is watching from. And if you have any questions at all, put those in the comments too. We read every one of them.